Hello and welcome there, Microsoft Office students. I'm going to do the Microsoft Word Chapter 1, Develop Your Skills exercise. I'm going to record it so that if you ever miss class or want to review how we did it, we generally do it together, you'll be able to look at it. So the first thing I'm going to do is open the book. Remember, we use the internet to get to our ebook, so I'm going to open Google Chrome. I'm going to go to the website, which is bookshelf.vitalsource.com. You can see I've been there before, so it shows it up here, bookshelf.vitalsource.com. I press enter. And now it needs the email and login. Remember, I've given you that email and login. If it asks you about cookies, it's a good idea just to click save, but you can always opt out if you want to. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to use my usual email address. Got to put my password in. And as a reminder, sometimes when you get into the bookshelf system, it might be in another book or it might be in a wrong part of the library. But if you open right here to the library page, that's the most useful, but it doesn't always do that. Here's the most current book that we use, Microsoft Office 2019 and 365. So I'm going to click it. As a reminder, the table of contents and everything shows here on the side, because as you can see, it reopened on a page that I did with one of my previous groups. So I'm going to click the table of contents button. I'm going to go to Microsoft Word, and I'm going to click Word Chapter 1, which is creating and editing business documents. And I'm going to go here to the chapter opener just to take a quick look. Gives us an overview of what the chapter is about. Creating and editing business letters. You will learn how to navigate in a document, enter and select and edit text, create numbered and bulleted lists, you change document views, save documents into other formats. Remember how to get to the next page is you just click this arrow down here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to close the table of contents now that I'm in here. I'm also going to shrink my window down. So I'm going to go up here into the upper right corner and click Restore Down. And I'm going to move this window over towards the right-hand side. In fact, in a Windows machine, if you drag it off the right-hand side or left-hand side, it automatically takes half the screen, which is really handy. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to click this A down here, and I'm going to make my font a little bit bigger just so I could read it and look at it a little bit easier. So it's up to you on the size screen you have. You're going to have your Word window on this side at some point, and you're going to want your book over here on this side as a reminder. So there's several acceptable styles of business letters. The block style letter is the one that they're showing here, which is the one we're going to pretty much draft. You'll also be doing other styles of letters in the review exercises at the end of the chapter. This is the date of the letter being written. This is the recipient's address, also known as the inside address, the salutation or greeting. This is the body, and you'll notice in the body we make a letter even with bulleted lists. This is what gets really cool in this chapter. Then we add the closing down here at the bottom and the person who is writing the letter. There is a proper amount of space to put in between here, and that's what will happen when we draft the letters. They're going to tell us how many presses of the enter key to do when we do it. This happens to be a cover letter, so they're just mentioning briefly the importance of a cover letter. I'm not going to read all this because I just want to be able to more or less show you kind of some of the steps, but I'll focus on a few of the things that it mentions. You have to have a purpose in your cover letter. Know that sometimes tracking systems will be reading your cover letter. What file type, sometimes that's the importance of doing the save as at the end of the chapter here is you can save it into a proper format for whatever potential employer is asking you to do that. Keep in mind who's reading it. Your cover letter should have a beginning, middle, and end, and get some other people to look at it. So I'm going to go on to the next part of the chapter here. Navigating in a document. If you're working in a multi-page document, it's helpful to know how to scroll, scroll to read more information that's not there. That's basically what I'm doing now. If I want to read more of this book, I point to this arrow on this bar on the side and I can drag this down. That's what scrolling is about. So that's called the scroll bar. You can click the arrow up here. You can click the arrow down here to go down. You can drag this box. If need be, based upon the window you're in, sometimes you'll have a scroll bar at the bottom of the screen to go left and right. So they also give you some keyboard navigation tips to maneuver around a document. The arrow keys are very handy to put the cursor or insertion point where you want it. Control End always moves to the end of the document. Control Home always moves to the beginning of a document. End by itself goes to the end of the line. Home goes to the beginning of the line. So now we have steps. This is what you in the book will have to do sometimes. Whenever there's numbers like this, they're asking you to do something. If they don't have numbers, it's just pre-reading. So in this exercise, we're going to use the scroll bar and keyboard to navigate in a document. So it says start word. So what most people would do maybe is go to the search box down here if you're in a Windows 10 machine. Click where it says type here to search, and you can type Word, and it finds the Word app, Microsoft Word. You click it, and it opens up, and you'll notice it opened up Maximize, but it's covering my book now. That could be a little bit problematic, right? So I'm going to now restore it down, and I'm going to pull it off the left-hand side of my screen to make it snap to that side. Now that it's snapped, I can also drag this where maybe I can make my book a little bit less big and my word screen a little bit larger. It just depends what you like to do. And I'm going to make my text a little bigger again. As you can see, it shrunk down a little bit funny when I did my sizing of my word screen. So let me scroll back up here in my book to get back to the step here. It says click the blank document template on the word screen. That's step 2. So here's blank document. And really, if you click it once, it's not going to open by itself. You'd have to click, double click it is the best way. Now, here's what your blank document looks like. And if it helps you, in the bottom right corner, they teach you this a little bit later, I believe, in one of the other chapters, you could zoom in or zoom out to make it a little easier on your eyes to read. So I'm going to zoom in a bit just to make it a little easier for you to see as well as me to see. I don't like to stress my eyes out. It says make sure the word window is maximized. Well, we can't really do that if we have to share the book here. Step 4 says choose File Open to display the open screen in Backstage View. So I should have reminded you that you needed to have already downloaded the Microsoft Office files that come with the book. I did make a video on that. I sent out an email about it. So hopefully you've already done that. But if not, we can take a quick minute or two to help people do that when we're actually in class. But since I'm just recording this to help you, hopefully you've already done it. So I'm going to go to File. And when you click File, this is what they call Backstage View because you don't really see your document. Click Open. And then I need to get to my Word Chapter 1. So I go this PC. And it gives me a list of folders on this PC already inside of my Documents folder. And that's where I asked a lot of you to put it already because that's very handy. And I have to go into some folders you might not have to. You might already have your Office files here. So I'm going to open this folder. I'm going to go into Microsoft Office. I'm going to go into my Office 2019 student files. Word is the chapter we're in. And then Chapter 1. And then they're asking me to open W1D1, My Virtual Campus. So I can click here, and it's on its way up right now. And for some reason, my window unsnapped. So I'm going to re-snap it for myself. And we're going to practice some scrolling and stuff. It says, move the insertion point through the text in the body of the document. So just moving your mouse around, notice how it looks kind of like the letter I. While up here in the ribbons and stuff, it looks like an arrow. Over here on the scroll bars, it looks like an arrow. But when I'm on the piece of paper, it looks like a letter I. That's called an I-beam. Step 7, move the mouse pointer in the left margin area and notice that it's a white diagonal arrow. See over here, it's a white diagonal arrow. Just here, it goes back to an I-beam. So this is your left margin area. That's what they're talking about. Okay. Step 8 over here in the book. Click the gray area below the scroll box to move the document down one screen. So here's my scroll box, and what they're saying is this is lighter color. Here's gray. I click here in the gray, it went down a screen jump. It says move the mouse pointer back into the document and click the I-beam anywhere in the text to position the I-beam. So if I click near a word, it puts my cursor where I clicked. That's really important for editing later on. Step 10, drag the scroll box down and position the insertion point after the last period at the end of the text. So this is my scroll box. I get down to I'm fast way scroll, and as you can see, scroll too far, you'll be even below the text. They said to click after the last word, so I click after the last word. Step 11 says drag the scroll box to the of the scroll bar and position the insertion point before the word my at the top of the document. Scroll up and I click before the word my at the very beginning. Then it says tap the step 12, tap the down arrow. See how it went down one line? Step 13 says press end on my keyboard. So look around your keyboard for the end key. It went to the end of the line. Step 13 also says, and then press home to go to the beginning of the line. Step 14 says hold the control key down and press end. It goes to the end of the document. Okay. Now step 15 says choose file, close, and choose don't save, if you're asked. Now I'm going to continue on to the next part of the lesson. So I click this little down arrow here to go to the next page. And we're now on the part of entering text. So in other words, typing in your text. When you type using the keyboard, the text will appear wherever you have the flashing insertion point, also known as the cursor. Therefore, you must position the insertion point at the desired location before typing. When you insert text, existing text moves to the right as you type. Also, text automatically wraps to the next line when you reach the right-hand margin, meaning you do not need to press the Enter key when you reach the end of a line. This feature is known as word wrap. So you don't turn on word wrap, it's always on. Using the Enter key, you use the Enter key to begin a new paragraph or to insert blank lines in a document. Anything that ends by pressing Enter is considered to be a paragraph. Thus, short lines such as a date line, an inside address, or even blank lines themselves are considered paragraphs. Pressing Enter inserts a paragraph symbol in the document. These and other symbols are visible when you show formatting marks. So what I didn't point out about these digital books that's really cool is when you point to a wording that's in blue like this inside the middle of a paragraph, if you click it, it gives you a little definition. Formatting marks are special characters such as spaces, tabs, and paragraph symbols made visible when the Show Hide button is turned on. You're going to learn about the Show Hide, but it's this button here on the ribbon that will be lit up better. Looks kind of like a backwards P. Will be lit up better when we're actually in a document, whether we open a document or we're creating a new one. And that's what they're talking about here. Showing and hiding formatting marks. Although formatting marks appear on the screen, you will not see them in the printed document. Viewing these symbols can be important when editing a document. For example, you may need to see the formatting marks to determine whether the space between two words was created with the tab key or the space bar. What I also didn't point out about these little diagrams in the book, these little pink things are clickable. Paragraph symbols appear when you press Enter. Little dots between words appear when the spacebar is printed. And they're not showing you here how you make the tab key appear, but the tab key looks like an arrow pointing to the right. To toggle the formatting marks on and off, you can use the Show Hide button. So if you click it, the Show Hide button, it's the feature that turns on these non-printing characters. What the book also does is they show you in these kind of gray boxes where to find it on the ribbon. So here, when you see these kind of three pink lines, it says the ribbon name is Home, the group that it's in is Paragraph, and the button is called Show Hide. So that would be Home, Paragraph, Show Hide. Remember, they give you the group name so you could find yourself focusing on just that group of icons. For those of you who might be using Macs, remember you don't get these group names down here, so you just jump straight from Home to Show Hide. Now to move into this lesson, it says we're going to turn on Show Hide to show formatting marks, and we're going to type a paragraph allowing word wrap to end lines automatically at the end of the right margin. Then we'll use Enter to end the first paragraph and start another paragraph. So the book says to choose File New. And step 2, click Blank Document. Step 3, we want to save it now into our Word Chapter 1 folder with the name W1D2 Cover Letter Tips. So you kind of sometimes have to read steps 3 and 4 together, because as we save to our Word Chapter 1 folder, that's the location we need to know the name of the file. So I go to File. The book says Save As. You can use Save or Save As. It really actually doesn't matter when you're saving for the first time, because it has to know where you want to put it. Now, because we just opened a file from Word Chapter 1, we should have Word Chapter 1 here in our recent list. If it's not, you would have to go to this PC again and make your way into your Documents folder and all that. Now here we put in the file name. So I'm going to click here, and we're supposed to name it W1-D2-cover letter tips. Oh, and I accidentally put in a space here, and I accidentally spelled out the whole word letter, which really you could do what you want there. It's just a recommended file name, but W1-D2 cover letter tips. The location is listed up here. I know it's long and hard to read, but if you point to it, you can see at the very end on the far right, it says Word Chapter 1 way over there. So that's a good thing. Now I can click Save. Now step 5, choose Home, Paragraph, Show, Hide. So Home, Paragraph Group, Show, Hide. Now it puts in these funny symbols, and I know for some people they're not very fun to look at while you're typing, but they are pretty handy to help you see formatting. Now, all I need to do is type this wording that you see in step 6, fixing any errors as we do it. So your You'll notice I'm just typing, no enter key or anything, and these words are lining up a little bit differently than they are in the book, but that's how we type using that thing that they called wraparound. This is normal. It's not going to line up exactly the way it does in the book, and that's perfect. Oops. And I just backspaced a couple of errors there, which is typical. As we type, we're never perfect. And as you can see, I'm not the fastest typist in the world, but that's okay. You'll also notice that I have a blue arrow here on this wording here. That just means it thinks it's a grammar problem. If you ever have red ones, it means it thinks you have a spelling problem. Okay? And it says, if you make a typo, use backspace or delete to remove it. Remember to position the insertion point next to the typo. Now, step 7 says we're going to do enter because we now want a second paragraph. If I were going to continue this paragraph, I'd just continue typing. And I press enter one time. It didn't say to do it 2. So I know if you've used word processing programs before, and I'm just typing what is appearing in step 8. And then when I'm done typing, I'm now on step 9 where I can save and close the file. So in other words, there's 2 ways to save. I can click this button up here at the top called Save. It looks kind of like the old floppy disk for those who ever use floppy disks. Real quick to do. Or the same thing is to go to File, then Save. I don't have it here because mine's saving to a online storage, so it's a little bit different. And you can always do on your keyboard Control S. It also says to close the file. Remember, close is not the same as exit. Close is not clicking this X up here. That's the most common mistake people do, because that will sometimes exit you out of Microsoft Word altogether. We go up and click File. We come down and we click Close here because we want to stay in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to move on to the next portion of the book here in just a second. Okay, so we're ready to continue here. I'm going to click this little down arrow. Goes to the next part of the book about selecting text. You must select or highlight text if you wish to perform an action on it. Suppose you want to delete a line, you select the line first, then delete it. Whether you use the mouse or keyboard to select text is up to you. The most common way to select text is to click and drag the I-beam, the text you wish to select. But there's more efficient methods. To select a single word, you can double click it. To select a paragraph, you can triple click it. To select a single sentence from the first letter to the period, hold the control key while clicking the sentence. To select single lines of text, hover your mouse in the left margin and click to the left of the line. To quickly select multiple lines, click and drag. Mini toolbar appears when you select things. That's okay. And here's some other handy tricks you can do. You can press click, shift, click to select awkward amounts of text, such as the end of one line and the beginning of the next. Simply click at the beginning of the text block, hold shift, and then click at the end. You can press control while clicking a sentence to select the entire sentence. And you can do control A to select the entire document. So if you're ever working on a Mac version of Microsoft Office, simply use the command key in place of the control key. So we're about to move into the steps here. It says in this exercise, you'll practice various selection techniques. So when it says navigate to the Word Chapter 1 folder in your file storage location and open W1D3 cover letter, it basically means we're doing a file open. So I'm going to go up here in a moment and click File Open. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and open the file. Step number 1 says navigate to the Word Chapter 1 folder and in your storage location and open W1D3 cover letter. So we go to File, Open. If need be, you're going to click this PC. Sometimes you might see something over here that might be of use, but I'm going to click this PC. I need to navigate into my folder. It's Word Chapter 1, and they want us to open W1D3 cover letter. Now I'm going to move my little picture out of the way. Okay. So it says we're going to practice selecting some text. Follow these steps to select text using the left margin. Step 2A, place the selection arrow in the left margin to the left of the first line of the inside address. So where it says Mr. Blake Carter, make sure you have a white tilting arrow. That's very important. Click one time. It selects the entire line like magic. Way fresh. Step B, use the selection arrow to select the Dear Mr. Carter line. Really cool. Now step 2C here is one of my favorites. Select this paragraph by double clicking the selection arrow. So point to the left of the I am applying paragraph and double click. Way cool, it selected the whole paragraph. Step 3 says using the selection arrow, drag down the left margin to select text. So say I want to select these 4 lines of text because they're not one paragraph. You can tell because of these enter keys. So for example, I can point here by the S of sandwiches, move up, it selects it. Or I could have dragged down, whichever direction you like to move, you can scroll that direction. Step 4 says click anywhere in the body of the letter to deselect. So that means usually you click anywhere near the wording. That's what you need to do there. Step 5 says triple click with the selection arrow anywhere in the left margin. So if I point here in the left margin and try to triple click, it's really kind of hard. 1, 2, 3, it selects the entire document. Another alternate way to do that is with the control key, press the letter A. To me, that's the way I'm used to doing it. I don't triple click, and it only works in Microsoft Word, so it's not the most useful to do. So once again, that's control letter A or command A if you're on your Macintosh computer. Okay, step number 6, double click any word to highlight it. So I'm going to double click the word computer here, and it highlighted the word. Step 7, double click a different word. I'll do Francisco, and it highlighted that word while deselecting the other word. Okay, step number 8. Let me just make sure. Oh, step 7 says, and then deselect the last selection. So just click somewhere so nothing's highlighted. Step number 8 says double click a word to select it. So I'm going to double click the word Carter here. And it says hold down, step 9, hold down the control key and double click a different word. Well, I'm going to double click the other name, Carter, down here. And notice because I held control, they're both highlighted. That's really cool. Okay. Step number 10, move the I-beam to the start of the first main paragraph and click to position the insertion point there. So the first main paragraph is this one, I am applying. So remember, you don't want the tilting arrow. You got to be close to the letter I to get the cursor there. If it's an arrow, you're going to highlight the whole line. Step 11, step 10, move the I-beam to the start of the first main paragraph, click to position the insertion point. Hold down Shift and then click after the word sales. So right after the word sales, and it grabbed from where I clicked, Shift click where I want to end. It's a really cool thing to do. Step 11 says click anywhere to deselect. So I'm going to move on to the next portion of the chapter. Using numbered and bulleted lists. So numbers and bulleted lists are just basically ways to bring readers' attention to things that are in your document. What you need to know is once you create a list, you can do it while you're typing, or you can do it after you've typed. Once you've created the list, each time you press enter, a new list item appears, meaning a bullet or a number. Pressing tab once moves towards the right, so it moves towards the right in your document, and that's called demoting. It's also known as indenting, so you can also get to indent up here in the paragraph group of your home ribbon. If you ever need to go back towards the left, it's Shift tab. The real magic to this is that you need to do it on the blank line, usually not after it's been typed. But we're going to do some of it now. To get to the bullets icon, it's home paragraph bullets. To do numbering, it's home paragraph numbering. So in this exercise, we're going to create and format numbered and bulleted lists because correctness is important. You'll also work with proofreading tools. The book is very notorious for having you do in these develop your skills exercises a lot of save ases, and it's way too many. So I'm going to skip step number 1 because we do not need it. Step number 2 says, if necessary, choose home paragraph show hide to display formatting marks. Well, we know it's on because I see the marks right here. I see spaces between the words. I see enter keys. I can also tell by the icon being darker color. See, as I point to it, it's hard to tell with the yellow on it. But when if go away, you can see it's a little darker. That actually means it's on. Okay. Step number 3 says position the insertion point at the end of the last line of the first body paragraph. So the first body paragraph is here with the word experience. So I need to click and make sure I get my cursor after the period. And in step 4 says press enter twice and type this text. So I'm going to type it now. It does say press enter in step 4, so I just did. Now we're going to do what's called a numbered list. Step 5 says choose home paragraph numbering to turn on numbers. So make sure I'm on home. Paragraph group, if you're on a Mac, you don't see paragraph group, unfortunately. Numbering is this one here, and if you rest on them long enough, they tell you what they are, numbering. And then I'm just going to type what I see in step 6. says notice under step 3, bullet number 3, numbering list number 3, notice the arrow formatting marks following the numbers. They represent tabs which are automatically generated by the numbering system. Just be very much aware that numbering and bullets come with their own form of indents, meaning distance from the left margin. That's all normal. Don't try to battle it. It does all the work for you, which is really cool. So step 7 says here, begin typing the last item, purposefully misspelling the word experience. They want to teach you something about autocorrect, which means some words it will automatically fix as you type. So I need to do hands. It's going to be weird to purposely misspell, isn't it? So as you can see, I missed the letter I in it. When I press spacebar, it automatically fixed it. So some things that you type by accident, it's automatically fixing for you. That's called autocorrect. I'm going to finish typing this bullet. We call it a bullet or a number, whatever you'd like to call it. The only difference is numbers, of course, have sequence. Bullets are just ways to highlight, meaning the order of the items is not very important. It says step 10, press enter 3 times. 1 enter brings a 5. The second enter turns the numbering off. The third enter creates a blank line. I'm on step 11, where I'm going to type a little bit more. Press enter as it said, and we're going to do step 12. Choose home paragraph numbering. So once again, that's home paragraph numbering. You'll notice when I click it, it automatically assumes I'm making a new list. Step 13, so a smart tag pops up. That's what this thing with the kind of the lightning bolt is. It says click the autocorrect options. That's also the same as the smart tag. And then click continue numbering. You'll see it becomes a 5, right? Another smart tag appears. Step 14, right click where the insertion point is flashing. So they want to show you a different method to do it. Right click where am I flashing there and click restart at number 1. Step 15, remember that number lists are typically used when sequence is important, so we don't really need sequence here in this. So we're going to switch it to bullets. Step 15, choose home paragraph bullets. So that's home paragraph group, just change it to bullets. I'm going to start doing the typing, doing all the enters in between, okay? Oops. So I'm continuing to type here. I'm on the last bullet. And there we go. Got it all typed in. Because numbering is typically used when sequence is important, and in this case, the list is not sequential order, we decide to put bullets for the first list as well. So step 17, the first list is this one here in understanding. It says move the mouse pointer to the left margin next to the first numbered item, press and hold down the mouse button and drag down through the 4th item. So in other words, you kind of point, it's kind of tough here with my tools here, but I'm going to point just here and drag on down through the 4th item. Whoops, I accidentally got the 5th. So there we go. And choose home paragraph bullets. So I just go home paragraph group, click bullets instead. Now it becomes bullets. It says click in the body to deselect everything and save our changes. So remember, you could just click save up here, do Control S, Command S, go to File, Save, whatever works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next portion of the chapter here. Editing text. So editing text, in my opinion, is where you're fixing problems like typos, changing words. You're literally changing the actual wording, what wording is in there, fixing mistakes. So there's many tools for fixing in that. That could be spell check. That could be doing a grammar check. It could be using a thesaurus, or it could be you manually making changes. If you're manually making changes, the important thing is to either select or line up the cursor, use backspace for the delete key. Backspace moves left while erasing characters. Delete key pulls in from the right side while removing characters. So I'm not going to do all the reading there. I'm just going to move into here and start doing some of the work here. Step number 1 is one of those weird save as's again. We're not going to do the save as. Step 2, in the first line of the main paragraph, click the I-beam in front of advertised. So advertised, click right before the A. To position the insertion point, step 3, type representative. And they did it with a capital R. So it now reads customer sales representative. The new word wasn't there. It pushed the other wording to the right. I did press the space bar afterwards. Step 4, in the third line of the first paragraph, position the insertion point between the A and the N in Ann. So Ann intern, click between the 2 letters. Step 5 says press delete once. It erases the N, the thing on the right side. Says press the space bar also in step 5. Step 6 says type the word sales. Don't worry about the blue underlines, they'll go away. Step 7, in the third line of the first paragraph, drag the mouse pointer across in the sales department. Press delete according to step 8. Step 9, in the first line of the second paragraph, double-click college to select it. So my college, just double-click college, press delete. So it says my education now. Step number 9, in the first line of the second paragraph, double-click college, we did that, sorry. Step 10, in the third bullet point in the second bullet list. So this is the first bullet list, this is the second bullet list. It says, double-click articulating to select it. Step number 11, type clearly stating. So that's a really handy trick, right? You double click a word and type whatever words you want instead. It deletes them while you're typing the new stuff. Way slick. Step 12, in the third bullet point in the first bulleted list, right click appropriate. So let's find the word appropriate here in the third bullet of the first list. Right click it. We get step 13 now. Follow these steps to choose a synonym. So we look in the right click options for synonyms, and they want us to click suitable. So all I have to do is click suitable. That's steps 13A and B. It replaced the word appropriate for the word suitable. Step 14, in the second bullet point, in the second list, right-click the word adeptness. So I'm going to right-click the word adeptness, and I'm going to replace it with the word expertise. So once again, I have to point to synonyms, slide over and down to expertise, and click it. And we've used what's called a thesaurus to change words to other commonly used words that mean the same thing. So we're going to move into the next portion of the chapter here in just a moment after we save our file. So I'm going to save, and then we're going to move into the next portion of the chapter. I'm going to click the arrow here in the book. We're going to work with document views now. You can view your documents in several ways. Each view is optimized for specific types of work. Views change the way your documents appear on the screen, but in most cases, they don't impact how it's going to print. The rare exclusion would that might be web view, but there's a few different views. They can be changed down here in the lower portion of Word or by going to the View ribbon. Okay, they're going to tell us that in a minute, but I just wanted to point that out to you real quick. So when they show these icons next to the words, that's kind of where you see them. You'll also see them if you go to the View ribbon. You also see the same icons up here. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that they can be found in a couple of different places. Read mode, this makes your document read kind of like a book. There's a special read mode status bar when you get into read mode. It brings its own little bar in. Print layout is the view you're in most of the time, which is this view right now. Print layout, you can also click it in the status bar or from the view tab. Web layout displays your document like it would look on the website. Remember, websites don't really understand margins. So this first paragraph could be stretched really far out to the right and stuff. It would look really bizarre. Outline view is useful for organizing longer documents if you have headings in there and stuff like that. Draft view simplifies the page by eliminating elements such as headers and footers and graphics and stuff like that. So I'm going to move down to the steps here. Locate, and that's this develop your skills W1D6. Locate and mouse over the view buttons on the status bar at the bottom right of the screen. Notice a toolbar tip appears. So if I point to this one, it says read mode, print layout, web layout. There's only 3 of them down there. Step 2 says click the first button, which is read mode. So I click this one and it's reading like a book now. I don't have to scroll down anymore to get to the bottom. But notice this arrow on the right. That's step 3. Click the arrow at the right side of the window to move to the end of the document. We don't have much there. Step 4, and that depends on your screen size, all that kind of stuff. My screen's relatively wide. That's why not very much is on page 2. Step 4, click the print layout button on the status bar. So that's the one in the middle. Click it. Now you're back to the view we were in before. Step 5, choose view views on the ribbon to display all the available views. So that's view up here, views group if you have it. These are the 5 available views. Let's see what the book wants us to do. That's it. They actually don't ask you to choose any of those views. They just want you to see what's available. So I'm going to go down to the next portion of the chapter now, which is saving your work into a different format. So you can save your document in many different formats. Prospective employers may ask you to send your application documents in one of several formats. The format of a file is specified by the extension added at the end of the file name. Note, you may or may not see the file extension in your file names when you do your save, your open, and all that kind of stuff, because there's a window option that hides them. For probably most of us, you don't see it, but on Macintosh, you do generally see it. There's document types of files. So earlier versions of Word saved files into what was known as the .doc file format. The current version uses the .docx format. Those are document types of files. When you open a document created in the earlier version, meaning the .doc format, up here in the title bar, it might say something like compatibility mode. We don't actually experience that at the moment, so because we're working with files in the newest format. There's what's called PDF files. PDF files are great when sharing files with others. If you're not sure what hardware and software that person has, Mac, Windows, whatever, Chromebook even, PDF will work on any machine. The other nice thing is that what it says here, the layout and fonts will look exactly the same on all types of computers. There's no type of conversion or anything necessary when you do PDF. They're also not meant to really be edited. So PDF files are not great for editing because there's a conversion required if somebody wants to try to edit it. And then they're talking here, saving a document for ATS analysis. That's those special systems that can look at documents and scan them, things like that. And some of those systems like files that are just what we call plain text or text files. They contain very little formatting and are the best format when submitting to an employment application documents that are likely to be scanned. So a potential employer will always tell you what format they want it to be in. So we're going to go ahead and do these steps now. Now this time we will need to do the save as. It's great to have a nicely formatted paper-based document to hand into an interviewer. If necessary, in addition, many prospective employers may ask you to receive your documents electronically. In this case, we'll assume the employer has asked to receive the document as a PDF file. So we're going to do the save as. Now I'm just scrolling to the top because it's a little bit more fun to look at that way. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn off the show hide. It doesn't matter if you leave it on or off when you change formats. It does not make a difference. It's all, these little symbols are only visible in Microsoft Word when the file's open. Do keep in mind, if I do leave it on now, the next file I open, they're on for that file. So it's just basically an on-off switch, like lights in your room. If you leave the lights on and close the door and leave the room, well, the light's still on in the bedroom. So next time you come in, the light's still on. Same idea here. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off just to have it off. We do want to do this save as because that's how we save into a different format. So we go to step 1, file. In my case, it's save a copy, but on your machines, it's likely save as, which is okay. It's the same thing. A copy is what save as is doing. Now you're going to make sure you're in your Word Chapter 1 folder. And if you point up here, it actually tells me on the far right, Word Chapter 1. So I'm okay on that. The next thing that I need to do is it says click the Save As Type field toward the bottom of the dialog box. So what they're really mentioning is when you're in the True Dialog box, you can get to the True Dialog box if you click Browse. So I'll click Browse just in case somebody's on a slightly older version of Word. And what they're talking about is in this box where it says Save As Type. That was the same thing I had over here as this drop down over here. So I click here where it says Word document, and it lists all the other available formats. Step number 2 in the book says, look at A, which is Word document. This is the native, regular, normal format for your current version of Word, which is the newest, which is that .docx, the default format they call it. Then they say B is this Word 97 2003. That's the older one that makes something in compatibility mode to work with the older versions of Word. Everything between the 97 to 2003 versions of Word. Then they ask us in step C, notice the PDF format. And step D says, notice the plain text format, which is that text file. There is one other kind of file that's pretty handy and popular, which is a little bit better than plain text, which is called rich text. That will keep formatting like bold, italic, underline, and all that kind of stuff. The book asks us in step 3 to choose PDF. Step 4 says change the file name to W1D7 cover letter. So really all I have to do here is click here. So it highlights in blue. Now be careful, don't type yet. Click to get a cursor after the 3, press backspace and type a 7. Okay. And then it says, then click the save button at the bottom of the dialog box. Now notice a couple of options down here they don't ask you to focus on, but standard means that this is good for online and printing. Minimum size means it's online only. There's also an open file after publishing, which means this is going to open it in the PDF reading type program that happens to be on your computer. There's also options they don't tell you about here, which are really awesome, where you can even add a password if I'm not mistaken. But that's really cool. So open file after publishing, I'll just leave it checked to show you what happens. I'm going to click save. Takes a moment or two. And mine opened up over here, or it's trying to open up over here in OneDrive for whatever reason. So let me just quickly log into OneDrive, because that happens to be my default program for PDF files. And because I'm saving my stuff online, might as well stay signed in. Oops. Had a typo in my password. And now it's showing me the PDF version of it. The reason mine went to the internet to do it is because the internet is my way to open PDFs at the moment. Your machines may have opened an Acrobat Reader or whatever it may be, but the book said to basically close that extra app that it opened in. So I'm going to close it here. So that was step 5. Click the close button in the upper right corner of the Adobe screen or whichever application. Mine happened to be the internet. Step 6 says click the close button in the upper right corner of the Microsoft Word screen to exit Word. If prompted to save the file before closing, click Don't Save. I'm going to click here. It didn't prompt me. And that's the end of our chapter together, I believe. But let me make sure. Yeah, that's the end of our chapter together. So I wanted to do that develop your skills exercise with you. I will be doing these types of videos for each of the lessons that we'll do together. You're welcome to do the self-assessment. And then I will be giving you time in class, if I go to the next page down, to be working on these review exercises, which are usually on green pages. Reinforce your skills are on the green pages. There's usually 3 exercises for each reinforce. I'm just scrolling down to show you the 3 reinforce exercises. I click here to go to the apply your skills exercises, which are the second set of review exercises. So we're going to want you to do as many of those green and orange exercises as you can. And that's why I want you to be able to do things when you're not actually in class. So I hope this video will help you do the develop your skills exercise in chapter 1 if you missed it, or if you want to review what we did together in class. Thank you so much.